where my colleague Stephanie Ruhle is hosting a first-of-its-kind Our Rights, Our Courts presidential forum is 2020 presidential candidate Andrew Yang, who was the only bit of diversity on that stage yesterday. But that's not why you're there, Andrew. You were there because there's something about your ideas that continues to captivate enough people to give you enough donations and put you high enough in the polls to be on the stage with the front runners. What was your sense of it, being on that campaign stage, watching how it was playing out between the front runners? What's the message you were trying to get out?
Well, our message was that we need to humanize this economy, Ali, because it's not working for too many families and people here in New Hampshire and around the country. And that we're in a period of unprecedented economic transformation, and our government is decades behind the curve. We need to speed up. We need to make it work for our people. That was our message last night, and we felt like it hit home.
Let's talk about, by the way, the pen that you're wearing. I know on one side it's the math, Make America Think Harder. What's the other one?
Oh, the other one is a button saying that we need to protect women's reproductive rights, which is the purpose of today's event. It was a privilege to address so many activists who are trying to protect women's reproductive rights around the country.
When we're talking about the differences between candidates, certainly with some of the front runners, as I was just talking to Eugene Scott about, they sort of fall into two buckets. I often think you're in a different bucket, and that might be why people enjoy listening to you. You sort of have a different approach when you talk about humanizing the campaign. Your approach to women and to the involvement that women should have in the economy. So it was interesting to see this article that showed up in the New York Times yesterday about some of your former employees saying they're seeing a different Andrew Yang than they did when they worked for you. I don't know if you had a chance to read this article, but it suggests that at a time when you were running your business, you had a more cavalier use of racial stereotypes about Asian Americans and a lack of attention to certain issues around women. What's your take on this?
Well, I haven't seen the article, but certainly I've been fortunate to work with incredible leaders, particularly women, who've elevated every organization I've been a part of. And that's where we have to lead the entire country, because the 21st century economy has to be around making us stronger, healthier, and that's where women naturally lead. Right now, we're not recognizing the work that women do in our communities, in our companies, to the proper degree. And if we change that, then we'd be much better off, much stronger heading into the future. Would you be able to say, for people who read this article, that the Andrew Yang they're talking about, that anything around here might be right, but that you've evolved into somebody with a broader and better understanding of dealing with race and gender? Well, certainly, again, I've been incredibly fortunate to work with women leaders at every level and every organization, and that will be the same in my administration. That's the way our country needs to come together. I think I was on a debate stage a little while ago where I said we need women leaders because if you get too many men alone for too long, we kind of become morons. Let's talk about some of your basic principles that don't get a lot of airtime, but you talk about some of the things that are going to have to be dealt with in this economy in which people feel so disaffected, that rich vein that Donald Trump tapped into in 2016 about Americans who feel left out from technology and outsourcing. You worry a lot about what comes next, about all those states in which driving a truck or driving a car is the biggest profession and how that's going to be affected by automation and AI, and how we're not really prepared for that because we're still dealing with the last round of technological advancement. And that's 100% right, Ali. The fact is, driving a truck is the most common job in 29 states, and there are another 7 million Americans who work at truck stops, motels, and diners around the country. And that's just one very, very obvious change, but there are many inobvious changes behind the scenes at our financial institutions, accounting firms. I was a lawyer for long enough to know that you can automate away a lot of paralegal and legal work. So we are not actually acknowledging the scope and the rate of change that's going to be 2 to 3 times more disruptive than the original Industrial Revolution. And that Industrial Revolution included mass protests, the implementation of universal high school. If we're going to rise to this challenge, we're going to have to think much, much bigger about what the economy of the future looks like. Do you think universal basic income is still a basis for a way in which we can build on that? Is that getting traction with people with whom you talk? It is. I'm happy to say 5 of the other candidates in the field or who have left the field have endorsed universal basic income in some way. A majority of Iowans actually now think it's a good idea. A majority of young people and Democratic voters are now excited about it. Universal basic income is the future. We have to start seeing ourselves as having intrinsic value and not letting the market tell us what everyone is worth, because the market will get it wrong for stay-at-home parents, for many women, many minorities, caregivers, artists, local journalists, you name it. Most of the most important things in our lives are actually getting undervalued by the market right now, and that's what we have to change. We can actually say we have worth independent of what the market is saying.
Andrew Yang, good to see you. Thank you for joining me. I appreciate it.
Ali, always. See you soon.
Presidential candidate Andrew Yang joining me from Concord, New Hampshire.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.